Welcome back into one of our top stories now. The pound sterling giving back some of its gains, languishing around two-year lows. It had firmed after UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson survived a vote of no confidence from within his own party. Johnson winning a slim majority of support from Conservative MPs, but the margin of victory will be highly concerning to his government, with over 40% voting to remove him from office. Johnson himself playing down his narrow margin of victory and pledging to get on with governing.
I think it's a convincing result, a decisive result, and what it means is that as a government we can move on and focus on the stuff that I think really matters to people.
But a string of damaging scandals, principal of all, the lockdown Partygate, means that Johnson must engineer yet another political comeback if he wishes to continue as Prime Minister. It should be noted that Johnson scored a significantly lower level of support than his predecessor, Theresa May, who survived a confidence vote but resigned just 6 months later. Opposition leader Keir Starmer said that the result also shows the Prime Minister was unfit to serve in his position.
The British public are fed up with a Prime Minister who promises big but never delivers. Fed up with a Prime Minister who's presided over a culture of lies and law-breaking at the heart of government. Fed up with a Prime Minister who is utterly unfit for the great office that he holds. The Conservative Party now believes that the British public have no right to expect honest politicians.
Analysis now with James Downs. He's Research Fellow at the Global Europe Centre. He joins us live from London. And James, it's been called the last act in the tragedy of Boris Johnson. If it was a book, you probably couldn't write it. I don't know if it's a political thriller or a comedy, right? So let's talk about what happens next from here. It seems like the Prime Minister may have won the battle, but he could perhaps be mortally wounded for the rest of the war. Your thoughts?
Yes, so hi Dan, good morning. And, we can see again just such, unprecedented kind of political scenes in British politics lately. Like you said quite rightly just now, Boris Johnson survived that vote of no confidence with the 59% of the overall share. However, I think going into the next couple of weeks, we probably see that he could potentially be mortally wounded. And I think the massive problem about this for, British politics right now, for the country, is that all of these kind of, the Partygate scandal, there's this ongoing issue, it's really, distracted the government from actually governing. There's all of these big issues, inflation around 9-10%, these other macroeconomic headwinds, the COVID-19 pandemic, economic fallout. And of course, Partygate has served to, cause even more instability within the government right now. So these big pressing policy issues mean that I think for the time being, Boris Johnson is safe, for the next couple of weeks, even months ahead. And I think another one of the factors that's the case is, simply speaking, I think no kind of clear opposition candidate inside the Conservative Party has really emerged in terms of who could replace Boris Johnson in a short-term period, in the interim period. So it's really fascinating because, yes, the Prime Minister has survived again, but I think this points to a bigger problem about his overall political credibility, his legitimacy, which poses big problems, not just for the future of British politics, but also for the very governance of the country.
And James, of course, he has survived, but it all seems quite unsustainable at this point. As I said before, 40% of his own party believe he is unfit for the job. So what is the likely path from here, in your view? And what actually led to this? As you say, no real opponent for Boris Johnson, no one to really take over the helm within the Tory party. What happens next? Does he take the path of Theresa May and decide to resign in just a few months, or is he going to battle it out, now free and immune from another leadership challenge for at least another year?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually think the current situation is extremely unsustainable politically, again, in terms of governing. However, I think it's extremely unlikely that Prime Minister Boris Johnson would follow the route of former Prime Minister Theresa May. He's not, I don't think it's in his political nature or even his personality type to resign. I think in the next couple of weeks, there will perhaps be some Conservative MPs, sharpening their knives metaphorically behind the scenes, seeing has he become weaker or could he have had a bounce back again? And I think we shouldn't also discount the fact that the Prime Minister could somehow wriggle his way out of this, that, For all of the Prime Minister's weaknesses, of course, he won that landmark election back in 2019. He's very successful at campaigning and strategy, but at the same time, I think the path is just extremely rocky ahead, just because of the huge, declining levels of trust that we see in British politics, particularly towards political leaders, towards Prime Minister Johnson. And in terms of the causation or the main causes that have led to this, I think, of course, Johnson had such a large mandate from that 2019 general election that he commanded such a big majority in the Commons. He could pass those laws quite easily inside the House of Commons due to that majority. But at the same time, I think it's also a bit of kind of pride and hubris that he's continuing to stay on. I think if we went back 5 or 10 years ago in British politics, then we would probably see the Prime Minister resigning. But we're not living in those times. We're really living in new times, so to speak, and uncharted waters of volatility.